Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the sixth in our transformation series of webinars. My name is Rob Durham, and I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Operations Officer for Equifax Canada. And today we're going to talk about score migration and what it means to your portfolios. But before we get started, I'm going to bring Sandra on for a brief moment. She'll give you a few highlights on how to best navigate the system and leave you with a few of the logistics and how-tos. So Sandra, over to you.
Thank you, Rob, and good afternoon, everyone. You'll see our presenters are on camera today in the media player on the left side of your screen. Below that is a Q&A widget. Feel free to enter any questions you may have, and we'll address them throughout our session today. In the event there are too many questions to get through, we'll generate an FAQ document, which we'll send out to you in the coming weeks. Our presentation is available in the resource widget for downloading, also on the left side of your screen, as well as some other documents you may find pertinent. We'll have our resources also available in French in the next few days. Today's slide presentation will show in the middle of your screen. As well, the session is being recorded today, and you will receive the on-demand link via email tomorrow. One final thing, we have a short survey we'd ask you to fill out at the end of the session today. It will automatically pop up at the end of the webinar, but if you prefer to complete the survey at a later time, you can access it by clicking on the survey icon at the bottom of your screen. As well, to the right of the survey icon is a Contact Us button. Feel free to send us a note if you'd like any further information. Now let's get started. Rob, back to you.
Thanks, Sandra. So joining me today on the call is Kathy Katsouleris. She is the head of our analytical consulting group in data and analytics, and has a great deal of experience herself and within her team in helping customers move to new scores. We'll talk through today what scores that we have available in the market and the ones that we'll be retiring and replacing with new scores. And Kathy will walk you through how to understand what your new score might look like. Also joining me on the call today is Rob Palmer. He's head of our commercial business, and one of the elements of transformation, of course, is the fact that we will be moving our commercial exchange to the cloud and introducing a new business credit report, as well as some new scores. So I know he's going to be really interested to speak to you about that. What I'm going to cover up front is a little bit about why we're moving to the cloud. What will some of the new scores mean? How do I connect to those new scores? Questions I think that the audience would be having as we're going through this process. Rob's going to talk to you about some changes to the credit report, as well as the commercial credit report, I should say, as well as the small business banking scores. Kathy will take you how to understand and validate your scores, and then we'll talk about the roadmap that we're going through in terms of some key milestones and things that you will need to do in order to be ready to accept these new scores and integrate them into your decisioning processes. At the end of this, we'll also have a slide that will just review all the support that we put in place around this. And I think you'll find that that's fairly robust. And so that if you do have any questions, following this webinar, there's lots of different avenues for you to get those answered. So why is Equifax moving to the cloud? So I've covered this in the other presentations that I've done in some of the previous 5. But for those of you that are new to this and haven't attended some of the other ones, I always think it's worth reviewing. I think that a couple of things that are really important here around stability, security, and reliability, things that are of material interest to all of Equifax's customers. So first of all, around stability, one of the things that is a hallmark of the design that we have and in moving to the cloud is the comprehensive stability design. The fact that we have standardized and configurable services with more capabilities built in, and a really higher confidence with cataloged cloud-resistant data and IT assets. So what does that mean? It means the visibility that we have around the end-to-end solution that we provide you, and the ability for us to be able to troubleshoot that and proactively maintain it means that you end up with much higher service availability. Where security is concerned, we already have invested an extraordinary amount made an extraordinary investment in security in our existing environment around the mainframe. And we have amongst the highest ratings from Gartner, which is a consulting service for the security that we put in place. But I think what's important to know is that is security that we've put around and bolted onto the existing systems. And while it's at an extraordinarily high standard, our ability to build security from the inside out when we move to the cloud, when we rebuild our applications, when we rebuild our scores, means that we will have industry-leading security, and at a standard higher than anybody else in the industry. And I think that's really important when you're exchanging the type of information that we are between your business and ours. And so I think that's a really important thing and something that you should feel really comfortable with. And the other thing that's important about moving to the cloud is the always-on reliability. And the fact that it is massively scalable. So what this means is, when you're in an older environment, a mainframe environment like that we have, you do run into the situation where you have planned outages. We have to bring down the system, in the overnight hours to do maintenance. That will no longer be necessary. We will be always on. And as you move further and further into the digital economy, and your customers are trying to access you and transact business with you 7/24, that's important. Being massively scalable means that if there is a sudden surge in volume for any reason at all, we can instantly respond to that. We can monitor it, see it, and respond to it, and it'll be seamless to customers. So these are big advantages as we move forward. There's a whole bunch of benefits that will come to all of you as you go through this journey with us, from configurable solutions to more data to collaboration, better data ingestion, meaning more data contributors, and speed to market. All of those things are really important. But today what we're going to focus on is products. So we're going to talk about some of the new scores that we have, why we're how we're introducing them, and what they're going to mean to you. As we move to the next slide, one of the things to know is when you go through a project like this is really an opportunity to sort of take stock and make sure that we have our customers all on the newest, latest, greatest scores. So that means that some of our scores are being sunset. So we went through our score catalog and we did a rationalization effort. And we have some scores that are little used or very old or not as predictive as the newer versions of that same score. And so we're taking this opportunity to sunset those scores. Now, if you have a sunset score, what that means is that particular score will no longer be available in the market. But what we are doing is moving you to the latest version of that score at no additional charge. So as an example, we have a couple of versions of the Equifax risk score. We have Equifax ERS1 and ERS2. Customers who are in ERS1 will find that score is sunset. You will automatically be moved to ERS2, which is more predictive and newer. Similarly, many of you may be on various versions of the Bankruptcy Navigator Index, or BNI. We have BNI 1, 2, and 3, and we will be sunsetting BNI 1 and 2 and moving everybody to BNI 3. Again, this is at no charge to you, and it gives you a better, more predictive score to help you make better decisions about your customers. When you get those scores, as I mentioned earlier, they're new and more specific to your needs. So better at adjudication, better at validation, and better at authentication. And for some of you, there'll really be nothing to do as you move to these new scores. If you connect to us through the web, there will be very little that you will need to do, and I'll get into that a little bit more on the next slide. If you connect to Equifax through a system-to-system connection, there will be a little bit of work that you'll need to do to be able to consume that score. So when you think about this, there's really two questions that you need to ask to understand how this score migration will affect you. One, do you access your Equifax data through the web? In other words, do you go to the Equifax web portal to receive your scores? Or do you access us through a system-to-system connection where you pull scores directly from our system into yours? So that's question number one. Question number two is, are your scores being rebuilt? And the vast majority of scores are being rebuilt. Or do you have some scores that are older that are being sunset and replaced with those newer, more predictive scores that I just alluded to a few minutes ago? If you come through the web, you come to the Equifax web portal, and the scores are being rebuilt, there's absolutely nothing for you to do. It'll be seamless to you as we move to the cloud. You'll get the benefits of stability, reliability, and security, and the other benefits around the innovation that'll be coming. But there'll be nothing for you to do at the point where we migrate to the cloud. If you have sunset scores and they're being replaced, then what you're going to want to do is make sure that you look at the odds charts that we've distributed to you. So everybody on this call should have received odds charts from us. And Kathy's going to walk you through how to use those. But essentially, what they will tell you is how predictive that score is, and it will tell you the percentage of bads that are in the bottom decile of the scores. And what you want to do is map that to how you look at a score today on your, on your existing product. So, for example, if you're on ERS 1 and maybe it gives you a score of 700, ERS 2 might be, say, 720. You just want to do a calibration exercise there so you can understand where you want to set your cutoffs. But that's it. That's all you have to do. So it is an exercise. It's a business exercise, a little bit of an analytical exercise, but there is no, programming or anything you need to do. If you come to us through a system-to-system connection and you have rebuilt products, again, nothing for you to do. But if you have a system-to-system connection and some of your scores are being sunset and replaced, you'll need to do the same thing as I just mentioned above. Understand the odds charts, reset your cutoffs. So that's the business aspect of it. But there'll be a little bit of technical work to do as well, because the way that your score gets transmitted in the payload that you get in that system-to-system connection will be a little different, right? Because the old score will no longer be there, so you've got to deactivate that and activate for the new score coming through. It's not a great deal of work, but it is something you need to plan for and do ahead of time. We've estimated that it's a couple of weeks of work by the time you understand what you need to do, develop the coding change and then test it. But it's not a great deal of work. So as you see, as I sort of color coded on here, most of this is little to no effort for people to absorb these new and improved scores. But if you are a system-to-system access endpoint and you have sunset and replace scores, there will be some effort that you'll need to do a little bit of programming. So that sort of sets the context for what we want to talk about today. And I'm going to turn it over now to Rob Palmer, who's going to take you through, a little more detail on commercial scores. Rob?
Thanks, Rob. So my name is Rob Palmer. I'm the head of commercial business at Equifax, as Rob indicated. So what does my team do? Well, in a nutshell, we leverage the unique and ever-growing commercial data sets that we have to provide insights and solutions that drive the business processes of our customers and our partners. So as an example, within the credit life cycle, on the acquisition side, it's about lead generation and targeting, onboarding, it could be authentication, verification, and KYC activities. From an account management perspective, collections, monitoring, and retention. But it's also, our data sets also leverage for other use cases like supply chain management or informing government policy, which lately we've been spending a lot of time focused in that area, considering the economic impacts of COVID. So what are the key changes as part of transformation? Well, I'm going to talk to two specifically. One is the business credit report and the other the SPP data. Most of you today consume our data and scores in the form of a credit report. And as part of our business transformation initiative, we've standardized the reporting in the form of our business credit report, or BCR. Some of you already use this report. And for you, the report will remain the same, but you'll be upgraded to the latest version of our scores across the board. For others, you'll be migrated off one of our legacy reports to this new reporting format, again, including our latest score versions. Kathy will speak to you specifically about the score changes, the impact in a few minutes, as Rob alluded to earlier. But the BCR itself is available in 3 different views to address different business needs. First of all, there's Complete View, which includes all the segments and all the scores, and it's the most comprehensive and detailed view we have available. Second, Risk View, slightly scaled back report, and it doesn't include all segments, but it does include scores. And finally, Profile View, a summary report without scores. And from a comparative perspective, if you are on one of our legacy credit reports, today the mapping would look like this. From users of our commercial credit report, that would be mapped to and migrated to our BCR Complete View. For those on our Power Pack reports, the migration would flow through to our BCR Risk View. And for our credit risk report customers, those customers will be migrated to our BCR Profile View. Now, another item of note on the right-hand side of the screen, our legacy reports didn't include reporting on small business banking segment. So Equifax has partnered with Canadian financial institutions to slide their small business banking portfolio data. And for the purposes of data submission, small business banking has been defined as a business that has a credit position of $500,000 or less. This data has been enabled by Equifax to build more predictive scores than we would have historically been able to do with our commercial line of business. And specifically, it powers the financial trade delinquency score, which, if you're being migrated to one of our new BCR reports, you'll see come up as the FTDS score. So here's from a comparative perspective. This is a sample of our commercial credit report. It's designed quite some time ago. It was based on the technology of the time, and it was optimized for the traditional use of a credit report at the time, where a credit officer would view, likely on a black and white monitor or green screen, and then print the report. And more often than not, probably a dot matrix printer at the time. And it was based on a highly manual decisioning process that involved a human being interpolating the information on the report and making a credit decision. As you can see, the new report looks decidedly different. So I'd like to call out a few items of improvement on this new report. First off, the use of color to leverage today's technology capabilities and making it easier to highlight key information. For example, score risk bands. Secondly, modular design. So data sets have been compiled in a more modular fashion, allowing for more complete design, flexible design, and the ability to more easily add new data sets has become available. So for instance, the SPP trades that I just mentioned earlier. It also sets us up for the future, which will allow for the creation of additional views, specific industry verticals, use cases, or ultimately customized views by client. And the third element I'd like to call out is trending. So the use of trended data will allow us to create a visual, or allows us, to create a visual representation of performance over time, as you can see here, relative to the BFRS scores. So what's the impact of pricing and the result of this migration and upgrade? The short answer is none. So whether you're moving from an existing version to a rebuilt version of the same product. So for example, if you're a BCR client today, you get upgraded to the new version of the scores at no additional charge. Or if you're moving from a sunset product to a rebuilt version of a we'll call it like for better product, for example, you're moving from a legacy credit report to BCR complete view scores. So that in a nutshell is the key changes relative to the migration from legacy reporting to our new business credit report or BCR views, and the addition of small business banking data into those reports. And with that, I'll hand the baton off to Kathy, who will walk you through score migration in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I think we might just pause here for a second to see if there's any questions first before we proceed to Kathy. Jacqueline,
yeah,
would there be questions?
Yeah, there is. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Rob Palmer, for that. I have CreditSafe contacting me stating we need to use them now for our commercial credit reports. Is this correct?
So we partnered with CreditSafe in the Canadian marketplace to address the needs of small business. And as part of that partnership, we were introducing our existing customers to the CreditSafe offering and their capability to access credit reports and other associated services. And so that's the nature of the outreach and the call, is to migrate you to what we feel is a better client experience and access to their platform. At the end of the day, if you prefer to stay with the Equifax web portal and the services you access through that portal, then absolutely you can continue to use the Equifax service.
Okay, thank you for that, Rob. Let me just see, we have another question here. This might be for Rob Durham. It's something you kind of alluded to earlier in the presentation, and that is, do I need someone technical from my organization to do this? I work for a pretty small organization. This is regarding
so I think the answer, yeah, the answer to that is it depends. And I apologize that that's probably not as clear an answer as you want. But what you need to really know is, do you access your Equifax scores through the Equifax web portal? And if you do, you don't need anybody technical to help you. You will continue to go to that portal, and what you will see there is either the existing score that you have, or if it was sunset, you'll see its replacement score. So as an example, if you pull a credit score from us and it's ERS2, you will continue to go to the portal, you will continue to see ERS2, and there'll be no change at all for you as we move to the cloud. If you access us through the portal, but you had ERS1, that score will be migrated because ERS1 will be sunset to ERS2. And when that happens, you'll want to just make sure you've done some calibration exercises so that you understand where you want your cutoff. Because they're different scores, a 700 on one may not be exactly the same as a 700 on the other. So you'd want to just test that a little bit and adjust your cutoffs. But as I said, that's a business decision. There's nothing technical to do. The only time you need to have a technical person involved is if you happen to have a system-to-system connection to us, and that in that system-to-system connection, it imports into your systems a score. If that score has been sunset and has been replaced for another one, you'll need to do a little technical work so that your system will know where to go to look for to pick up the new score in that data string. It's not a lot of work. Maybe, as I said, a couple, 3 weeks worth of work, not even continuous time, but, for somebody to get through that. But that would be the extent of it. You'll see later on in the presentation, we've also got a slide on where you can go for for technical support to do that, either you or your technical team can go to within Equifax.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much, Rob. And I think that's it for now. Shall we throw it over to Kathy?
Sure. Kathy?
Thanks, Rob, and good afternoon to everyone. Before we get started on talking about score validations, I thought I'd take a brief moment to talk about the DNA consulting team and who we are and what we do to help connect the dots in terms of how we are supporting our customers through score migrations. So who are we? We are a team of seasoned data and analytics experts that support our sales organization in listening to our customers' problems and objectives, and designing solutions that best fit and are rich in value. So whether you're a lender that's new to the market or a lender that's been in the market for a while, doing business for a while, the DNA consultant would listen and bring solutions to the table, such as risk scores that perform well, are a good fit, and will assist in making sound credit decisions while mitigating risk. So why are you here today? You're here today because we've informed you that there is a series of Equifax scores that we will be sunsetting that fall under the consumer and commercial lines of businesses. So we've recommended to you replacement, we've recommended newer score versions to you that can easily replace these products that you're using today. And again, as both Robs have mentioned previously, there's no additional cost. So what you see before you is a consolidated view of all the impacted scores and the corresponding upgrade option. So let's talk about what's next for you. As part of our communication strategy, you should have received by now an email that contains score-related materials. So at a minimum, everybody's going to receive odds charts for the replacement score option. And where applicable, there's also going to be comparison charts and distribution charts to help in guiding you to make some changes with regards to your score cutoffs. As both Robs have talked about it, and Rob just now as part of the question that was asked, if you are connected to us through a system-to-system connection, you'll also find additional collateral related to the mapping specifications. So this is the guide that your technical team will need to follow so that they code to receive the newer score and the new reason codes. For those accessing scores today through the web portal, you're not going to find an attachment, and that's okay because that just means you don't have any technical work to do. You just need to be aware that there is going to be a change. So later on in the presentation, we do have a slide around some of the timelines, which will allow you to understand what needs to be done by when. So odds charts. As I mentioned, at a minimum, the emails will contain odds charts for your replacement score. For those that are not familiar with what an odds chart is, in basic terms, it's the output of a score validation analysis. Okay. It's a report format that basically shows, using a population of interest, whether it's for account management or adjudication, we show how well the score performs in separating the goods and the bads, as well as how the score rank orders. So for example, the higher the score, the less risk of finding bad accounts. The lower the score, the higher the risk of finding bad accounts. I want to draw your attention to two key indicators that can be found on this report. First one is the KS measure, as well as the percentage of bad records in the lower decile. Both of these measures are key in evaluating how well the score performs. So for both instances, the higher the number, the better the performing score. For those that are not familiar with how to read an odds chart, and this is the first time you're seeing this, don't worry, we've got you covered. Included as part of your validation package, there is a guide that looks like this. So it'll give you a step-by-step walkthrough for each component so that before you know it, you can become a pro. And then for those that are familiar, leverage it as an opportunity to review your knowledge or just skip over it altogether. So let's take a look at some real examples. So for those that are using an Equifax risk score today, the older versions, the replacement option that we've presented you with is ERS2. So using the two key measures that I just talked about in terms of evaluating the score performance, KS and the percentage of bad records in the bottom decile, you see according to this chart, whether it's for account management or acquisition, across the board, ERS2 outperforms these older scores. Similarly, if we look at the bankruptcy score, right, and we look at the older versions being BNI1 and BNI2, and the replacement score, BNI3, again, same story here for both the measures that I talked about, KS and percentage of bad records in the bottom decile. You see across the board, BNI3 outperforms these older scores. So once you've had a chance to really understand the outcome of the odds charts and really see for yourself that the replacement option that's being presented to you is in fact a better performing score, some of you might need to make some adjustments to your score cutoffs. So for our score, our consumer score customers, we've actually included distribution charts that look something like this. So what the distribution chart is essentially a side-by-side comparison of the old score and the new score by 10-point score bands. So the way to read this is essentially look at your score cutoff and look at the band that it falls within. Look to see what the associated bad rate is, and then find the equivalent bad rate with the newer score, and then identify what the score band is for the newer score. So as an example, if my score cutoff is 725, I see that falls between the score band of 720 to 729. And the associated bad rate there is 2.24%. Look across at the new score, I see that same bad rate, 2.24, being associated with the score band between 710 and 719. So what does this mean? I'm going to have to adjust my score cutoff from 725 today with my old score to about a 715 with the new score. Just want to call out, similarly, the distribution charts also have a guide, again, that gives you a walk-by-walk, that gives you the opportunity to walk through and understand more intimately how to read and how to interpret the chart. So in summary, the goal really of the email and the materials that we've provided to everyone is to see and for yourself that the recommended score replacement is in fact a superior score to the one that you're using today. Again, we've stated this numerous times, but I think it's an important component. There's no incremental charge in these upgraded scores. So again, the only thing that needs to be done is if you are receiving these scores through system to system, you gotta use the mapping specifications that are included in that email to do the technical work to receive the newer scores. And then for those, again, leverage or accessing the scores through the web portal, there's nothing for you to do. As always, we here at Equifax are here to support you in this migration journey. So at this point, I'm happy to address any questions that the audience might have.
Hi, Kathy. Yes, I do have one question. What if I never received this package?
Maybe I can jump in with that answer. It looks like Kathy's might be having some technical difficulties. So if you didn't receive the package, likely what that means is you don't have sunset products. If your products are, the newer versions, so ERS2 or BNI3, then those products are going to continue. They and will be rebuilt, and therefore there's we haven't sent you any odds charts or any information because there's no change for you. But if you do have sunset scores, you should have received a package. If you're unsure as to whether you have sunset scores or not, there'll be some information on a slide or two with a number that you can call into Equifax or an email address that you can send us questions, and we'll be able to answer your specific question and concern.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rob. Here's a question about scores and how they're displayed. Will there be changes to the way my scores are displayed?
No, there won't be. There'll be some change if you're talking about commercial scores, and I think Rob Palmer did a good job of walking through what the old, BCR credit report looked like, and then what the new one will look like. So for commercial, definitely the BCR changes, and the scores will be changed a little bit. Especially, you saw the one of the inserts on his slide that talked about, BFRS trended over time. So that's definitely new, to be able to see that trended score, which I think is a huge advantage for customers in being able to assess the creditworthiness of the applicants that they're dealing with. So in that regard, it'll change. If you're going to, our web portal and you're picking up, your new ERS2 score, it won't change immediately. We recognize that portal is a little bit dated, and there is a work effort around, upgrading that and modernizing that. We expect that to be available, in the latter part of mid to late Q4 or early Q1 next year. So there is improvement in terms of usability and navigation and all that kind of stuff in the portal, as well as some extra functionality coming. But at launch, from September until into Q4, there shouldn't be a material difference in the way you would view your scores.
Okay, thank you. Another question. If we use a third-party vendor, how will this be handled?
So we engaged with all the different, with various third-party vendors. So if there is I'm assuming if you're dealing with a third-party vendor, you're mostly doing it as a way for them to connect to us and ingest scores or data for you. So if they're on a system-to-system connection with us, they'll need to do that same programming change that a customer on a system-to-system connection would do. And if they're receiving sunset scores on your behalf, you'll need to work with them to do some recalibration on your cutoffs. But other than that, no change.
Okay. I have a question here. I'm sorry, but can you remind me what a sunset is, what it means?
Yeah, sunset just means that it is an older score that we are retiring from the product catalog. And so it means that it'll no longer be commercially available, and we will be replacing that with a newer version of that same score. The advantage of that for you, of course, is because it's newer, and you saw the examples that Kathy shared, far more predictive in what it does versus the older ones. So it's actually a pretty significant benefit for customers. And as we said several times through this, we're going to migrate you to that new and improved score at no charge.
Okay, so I think we're good right now. Rob, do you want to proceed with the next slide, and we'll see if some more come in?
Okay. So let me just talk to you a little bit about the roadmap. Where are we now, and what do you need to be doing? So the first thing is review your score documentation. So for those of you that have sunset scores that are being replaced, you would have received an email from us in the last couple of weeks. Please look for that, dig it out, and start reviewing. How much better the decisions you're going to be able to make going forward are with these new, more predictive scores. With that, as I said, you'll need to probably tweak or calibrate your cutoffs. But that's the work that you should be doing now and for the next couple of weeks. Following that, if you're, as I mentioned, a system-to-system connection customer, so this is very specifically just for customers that connect to us through a system-to-system connection, you're going to need to, you want to start working through with your technical team or your third party, what you're going to need to do to upgrade the programming in your system-to-system connection to be able to accept the new scores. And you're going to want to do that before the end of August. So, I said it's probably 2 or 3 weeks of elapsed time of work, and you've got, kind of 3 months to kind of get through that. Following that, you want to move to the new score. So these new scores are available for you today. So if you get in touch with us, tomorrow and say, look, I access you through the web, and I know that my scores have been sunset. I'd like to move to the new score tomorrow. We can do that. So there's no need to wait. As I said, you're probably not going to do it tomorrow. You're going to want to take a look at, and do a calibration between the old scores and the new ones, set your cutoffs, and then you'll be all set to move forward. But once you've done that, you can move to that new score at any time. Similarly, if you connect to us through a system-to-system connection and you updated the programming and you insert and you want the new score inserted, again, you can do that as soon as you can get that work done. So that's what I mean when I say you can do any of these things tomorrow. You'll be continuing to consume these off of the mainframe. You won't be on the cloud yet, but then you're all set to move to the cloud, because then you will be on our latest version of product. And when you move to the cloud, you'll be now moved into the category of rebuilt products. And again, nothing for you to do when we move to the cloud. Commercial scores, timeline's a little bit different. So while you can move to the new consumer scores, literally today or tomorrow, commercial scores will be available for you to move to beginning in August. The date for completion to move to your new consumer score is September 1st. So please, make time over the next couple of months to update the programming in your system-to-system connection if necessary, to tweak and calibrate and set the new cutoffs for your new score do that work over the next couple of weeks or next couple of months, and we need you to do that by September 1st. If you don't do it by September 1st, we'll be migrating anybody that hasn't already moved en masse at that time, meaning that if you haven't done the work ahead of time and you go to the portal, you're going to see a new score after September 1st. So best to do it on a timetable that suits you, and you've got sort of 3 months to kind of work through that. And lastly, same sort of message for our commercial scores, except that we will, for anybody who hasn't moved by October 31st, we'll go ahead and move you to the new scores at that time. So again, lots of time to get this done, but please, over the next couple of months, make time in your calendars to get this work done and be ready to go. Lastly, and I mentioned this a couple of times throughout the course of the webinar, we're here to help. We've got lots of information. I think Sandra mentioned to you that you'll have a copy, a recorded version of this webinar. You'll be able to get a copy of the slide deck. In there, you'll find this slide with links to email us for support, to call us for support, and a web page that you can access with FAQs and user guides and odds charts and all of that kind of stuff. So, hopefully we've given you the tools that you need to successfully execute this, and we're very excited for you to be able to do that, because the advantages of getting onto these new scores and then moving to the cloud over the next couple of months and taking advantage of all the innovation and new products and services we'll be able to bring to you in that environment, I think is a really exciting thing for us and for our customers, and ultimately it's going to help you serve your customers better. Are there any other questions in the queue, Jacqueline, that we can address before we close off?
I did have one more. Do I need a new member number to activate my replacement score?
You do not. Some customers might prefer to put a new score under a new member number, and you can certainly do that. We're happy to accommodate that request if that's easier for your tracking and bookkeeping and so on. Just give us a day's notice, because it'll take a day or two to request the member number, get the score assigned to that, and move forward. But if you want to continue using the same member number, your new score can be assigned to that member number.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rob. That's good. I think we're pretty good right now.
Okay, great. Well, I wanted to thank both Kathy and Rob Palmer for joining me, and most importantly, to thank the audience for your time today. I know that how busy everybody is, and it's not easy to give up an hour of your day. I hope you found this webinar informative. I hope you will find that it makes the transition through the migration to the new products as well as to the cloud easier. And I hope you're as excited as we are about what's in front of us, and how much better we're going to be able to serve your customers going forward. So thank you very much for your time today. Have a great day, everyone.